Silence as power has always unsettled people because it cannot be easily interpreted, controlled, or manipulated. Words can be twisted, argued against, and redefined, but silence stands as an immovable wall that reflects more than it reveals. When someone chooses silence deliberately, they create a presence that is stronger than speech itself. This is because silence leaves space for the other person's thoughts, fears, and desires to echo back at them. In the absence of words, the mind rushes to fill the void, and in that rush, truth often leaks out. Silence is not weakness, it is calculated restraint. It allows one to observe, to study, and to let others unveil themselves without being provoked or guided. Human beings have an instinctive discomfort with silence. In conversations, when a pause grows too long, most people scramble to break it, fearing the tension it creates. But this very discomfort is the weapon. The one who holds silence controls the pace of the interaction, forcing the other to reveal more than they intended. They begin to speak just to fill the gap, and in doing so, they often disclose their real motives, vulnerabilities, or insecurities. Silence becomes a mirror in which the other sees themselves often more clearly than they would like. Consider the realm of conflict. Anger thrives on reaction. An insult demands a counter-insult. A raised voice expects an echo. But silence denies fuel to fire. By refusing to react, you rob the aggressor of their victory, and they burn out in their own heat. Silence transforms the battlefield because it shifts the power dynamic. The aggressor suddenly feels exposed, speaking into a void that does not validate their words. Their own fury rebounds on them, while your silence stands unshaken. That is a dominance stronger than any shouted retort. In relationships, silence is equally potent. Constant validation, endless words of reassurance, or continuous explanations often dilute one's value. When every emotion is expressed and every thought is spoken, mystery disappears, and with it, influence fades. Silence, however, keeps value intact. It suggests depth, control, and inner strength. The one who does not rush to explain or defend becomes an enigma. Others lean closer, trying to decipher, investing energy and imagination into the silent figure. What is not said becomes more intriguing than what is spoken. Silence makes people work harder to understand, and what costs effort is always cherished more. Philosophers like Schopenhauer understood this. The greatest truths are not always declared loudly but observed quietly. When you are silent, you become the observer instead of the performer. You see patterns in behavior, contradictions in words, and inconsistencies in intentions. People reveal themselves more fully when they are not under pressure from your speech. Silence is like a stage where others act, unaware that they are being studied. This vantage point grants clarity that constant chatter can never provide. Furthermore, silence disciplines the self. To remain silent when provoked, tempted, or pressured requires mastery over impulse. It is the art of ruling oneself before attempting to rule others. It signals that your emotions are not on display for anyone to exploit, that your thoughts are not scattered for others to harvest. Silence builds an aura of independence, the sense that you belong to no one's grasp, that your approval must be earned, not assumed. In the economy of human interaction, silence inflates value. What is rarely given is most desired. Words lose weight when they are scattered like cheap coins. Silence, however, accumulates interest. When you finally speak, your words carry the weight of scarcity, and others listen with sharper attention. Your silence has primed them to treasure the sound of your voice, to measure your words with care. This is why silence is never emptiness. It is the foundation on which power rests. The mirror of desire reveals an uncomfortable truth. People rarely pursue what they already possess. Instead, they chase what they secretly feel is missing within themselves. Desire, therefore, is less about the object and more about the void it is meant to fill. When someone longs for wealth, it often springs not from abundance, but from an inner sense of insufficiency and insecurity. When one craves attention, it reflects an inner emptiness that thrives on external validation. Every pursuit is a reflection, not of the thing being chased, but of the hidden hunger gnawing at the heart of the pursuer. Human behavior becomes predictable when seen through this lens. The person who seeks constant admiration does so because they lack self-acceptance. The one who endlessly pursues power does so because they secretly feel powerless. The lover who chases beauty with desperation often battles with their own inadequacy. Desire acts as a mirror, showing not the world but the fractures within the self. To understand someone's pursuits is to read their weaknesses, for what they cannot live without is what they believe they are missing. This explains why desire is never fully satisfied. Even when the object is attained, the inner lack remains. The wealthy man accumulates fortunes yet feels poor in spirit. The one who wins admiration still fears being forgotten. The seeker of love, after gaining affection, still trembles at the thought of losing it, because the pursuit was never about the object itself, but about covering a wound that remains unhealed. Fulfillment is temporary. The mirror only reflects, it does not repair. Silence becomes the tool to observe this truth. Instead of being blinded by the charm of what someone pursues, watching quietly allows the motive beneath to surface. A person's obsessions are louder than their declarations. The more insistently they chase, the clearer the absence they are running from. A relentless pursuit of status is the shadow of insecurity. A thirst for conquest often reveals deep fragility. Desire exposes what words conceal, and the mirror never lies. This principle also explains attraction between people. One is drawn not always to what is objectively valuable, but to what compensates for a personal deficiency. The insecure seek confidence, the timid crave boldness. The restless are magnetized by calm. What appears as admiration is often envy disguised as love. Desire pulls individuals toward what they believe will complete them, yet in truth, it only magnifies their incompleteness. They chase the reflection of their own lack, mistaking it for salvation. Philosophers have long pointed to this paradox. Schopenhauer argued that human desire is a cycle of suffering because to want is to confess emptiness, and to attain is to be disappointed. The object cannot heal the void, it can only distract from it for a while. Desire thus becomes a restless mirror, showing the pursuer their absence, offering temporary illusions of wholeness, and then shattering again when the hunger resurfaces. The pursuit continues endlessly because the mirror never provides what is missing, it only reflects the hollow spaces. Understanding the mirror of desire offers mastery over human interactions. By studying what people run after, you can see what wounds they hide. By recognizing your own desires, you uncover your hidden lacks. This awareness transforms relationships, ambitions, and choices, for it strips away illusions. Desire ceases to be a mystery, it becomes a signal. The object may glitter, but the reflection reveals the truth of the one who chases it. The mask of appearances governs much of human interaction, because rarely does anyone present themselves without layers of concealment. What you see on the surface is almost never what truly lies beneath. A smile can hide resentment, kindness may cloak manipulation, and generosity often disguises expectation. Every gesture carries with it two dimensions: the visible act and the invisible motive. The world is a stage where people perform roles that do not always align with their inner truth, and it is only through careful observation that one learns to separate the mask from the face. Appearances function as shields. They allow people to move through society without exposing their vulnerabilities. A person who appears confident may be hiding crippling insecurity. Someone who seems humble may secretly crave recognition. The polite colleague may envy you more than they admire you. In every gesture, there is a mask designed to protect the true intention. This is not always malicious, but is always strategic. Human beings instinctively cover their desires, fears, and schemes because naked truth makes them too easy to wound or exploit. The danger lies in taking appearances at face value. To trust the gesture without questioning the motive is to walk blindfolded through a field of traps. Compliments may not be admiration but manipulation seeking a favor. Silence may not be agreement but quiet resistance waiting for the right moment. Even acts of love can be colored by self-interest, as devotion can hide dependency and tenderness can mask control. The mask of appearances is never fixed. It shifts depending on what a person hopes to gain, hide, or protect. Power belongs to those who see beyond the mask. To watch without rushing to believe, to listen without taking every word as truth, is to pierce through illusion. The one who sees the mask but does not expose it immediately holds the upper hand. By remaining silent and observant, you allow the mask to continue its performance until the cracks appear. No act can be sustained forever, and eventually the hidden intention leaks through contradictions, inconsistencies, or overplayed gestures. Patience becomes the scalpel that cuts through the disguise. This truth also explains why first impressions are so often deceptive. The charm that dazzles at the beginning may later reveal itself as a calculated lure. The quiet figure who seems insignificant may carry strength greater than the loudest voice. Appearances seduce perception because they appeal to what the observer wants to see. If you crave acceptance, you will believe flattery. If you long for guidance, you will trust authority. The mask works best when it reflects the desires of the one being deceived. The illusion becomes a partnership between what is presented and what you secretly hope is real. Yet not all masks are crafted with malicious intent. Sometimes appearances are shields of survival. The strong front of someone in pain, the smile of one enduring hardship, the laughter that hides loneliness. These too are masks, but masks meant to endure rather than deceive. Still, the principle remains. The gesture is never the whole truth. The mask conceals the depths, and only the patient eye can sense the currents beneath the surface. To understand human nature is to accept that appearances will always exist. Stripping them away entirely is impossible, but learning to read them is a form of mastery. The raised eyebrow, the delayed reply, the exaggerated compliment, all carry hints of the hidden script. Every gesture is both a message and a disguise. The mask of appearances teaches that nothing should be accepted as it is shown, because the truth does not walk openly, it hides beneath the surface, waiting for the discerning to uncover it. The law of contrast governs desire with an invisible hand, for human beings rarely value what is abundant, but are irresistibly drawn to what is scarce. Deprivation sharpens hunger in ways that abundance never can. When something is withheld, the mind begins to magnify its worth, turning the absence into a fascination, the distance into a form of intoxication. This is why the restrained gesture, the withheld word, or the unfulfilled promise carries more weight than constant availability. The scarcity of access creates value, while endless indulgence breeds indifference. Hunger itself is born from contrast. One does not appreciate food when it is always on the table, but a single meal becomes divine after days of fasting. In the same way, the presence of restraint awakens a deeper craving than constant gratification. It is the pause in music that makes the next note powerful, the the shadow in art that gives light its brilliance, the silence in conversation that makes the next word unforgettable. Without contrast, nothing stands out, everything dissolves into sameness. Restraint gives edges to experience, carving intensity out of ordinary moments. In relationships, this law operates with precision. The person who is too available, too eager, too quick to give often finds their value diminished. Familiarity without scarcity leads to complacency. But when access is limited, when words are measured, when presence is not guaranteed, desire intensifies. The mind begins to chase what it cannot immediately have, imagining it with more beauty, attaching to it with more passion. The restraint of one becomes the pursuit of another. By holding back, one creates the illusion of rarity, and rarity always commands pursuit. This law also explains the paradox of desire. People often long for what is denied to them, not necessarily because it is better, but because it is harder to attain. The forbidden fruit carries more sweetness because it is out of reach. The challenge creates excitement where abundance would create boredom. When everything is easily given, the thrill of pursuit dies. Contrast reignites the thrill by introducing distance, difficulty, or delay. In this space of deprivation, imagination fills the gaps, painting the absent object with exaggerated allure. Restraint also shapes power. The one who does not rush to reveal, to react, or to indulge commands more attention than the one who constantly offers. Words carry weight when they are rare. Presence becomes precious when it is not guaranteed. By refusing to satisfy every demand, by strategically holding back, one trains others to chase, to invest, and to hunger more deeply. This is not manipulation, but the recognition of a universal law. Desire is sustained by contrast, and pursuit is ignited by restraint. Even in broader life, this principle is visible. Comfort dulls ambition while hardship fuels growth. The person who has faced deprivation often works harder, hungers more fiercely, and values success more deeply than the one who has always known ease. It is the absence of warmth that makes fire sacred, the scarcity of freedom that makes liberty priceless, the experience of struggle that makes achievement profound. Deprivation does not weaken hunger, it strengthens it. Restraint does not discourage pursuit, it intensifies it. The law of contrast operates quietly, but its influence is absolute. Where there is lack, there is longing. Where there is resistance, there is desire. The one who understands this law no longer wastes value by oversupplying themselves. They learn that holding back is not weakness but mastery, that silence can be louder than speech, and that scarcity can create more desire than abundance ever could. Hunger is sharpened by deprivation, and pursuit is intensified by restraint, for contrast is the hidden architect of all desire. The economy of attention is one of the most powerful forces shaping human interaction, because attention is the currency that everyone seeks yet few know how to control. Unlike material wealth, attention cannot be stored or duplicated. It exists only in the moment, and where it is placed, value follows. What is scarce automatically becomes desirable, while what is abundant and freely given diminishes in worth. This is why what you withhold becomes priceless, and what you give too freely becomes worthless. Attention obeys the same law as every economy. Oversupply cheapens, scarcity enriches. People instinctively crave attention because it validates their existence, their choices, and their identity. To be ignored is to feel invisible, but to be noticed is to feel significant. Yet because attention is so coveted, it is also easily exploited. The one who gives it without measure soon finds that it no longer carries weight. Compliments repeated endlessly lose their power. Availability without limits erodes mystery and allure. When attention flows constantly in one direction, it stops being treasured and starts being taken for granted. By contrast, the deliberate withholding of attention magnifies its value. A pause in communication creates anticipation. A delayed response builds tension. A glance withheld provokes curiosity stronger than a flood of words. The human mind assigns worth based not on the object itself, but on how difficult it is to attain. Scarce attention becomes a luxury, while abundant attention becomes background noise. Just as gold is valuable because it is rare, so too is attention valued when it is measured, restrained, and selectively given. This economy also reveals power dynamics. The one who controls their attention controls the interaction. To remain silent when others seek validation forces them to invest more energy, more words, more emotion in the attempt to win acknowledgement. By contrast, the one who scatters their attention everywhere finds themselves exhausted, unnoticed, and disrespected. Power lies not in how much attention you give, but in how carefully you allocate it. To spend it wisely is to make it matter. To waste it is to make it meaningless. The economy of attention also explains why absence often creates stronger desire than presence. A person who is always available fades into familiarity, but the one whose attention must be earned is pursued with greater intensity. Their presence is not assumed but hoped for. Their acknowledgement is not expected but sought after. The more difficult it is to gain, the more it is cherished when received. Restraint elevates value, while indulgence diminishes it. Even in broader society, this principle holds. Celebrities, leaders, and thinkers maintain influence not by being constantly accessible, but by carefully rationing their presence. Their words matter because they are not spoken lightly. Their appearances draw crowds because they are not endless. What is scarce attracts attention, while what is constant fades into indifference. The same applies in personal life. The one who does not freely offer every thought, every moment, every reaction builds an aura of worth around their attention. Self-mastery lies at the core of this economy. To resist the impulse to constantly respond, to continually affirm, or to endlessly explain is to recognize that your attention is not free. It is your most powerful resource, and its value depends on how you manage it. The more sparingly it is given, the more others fight for it. The more it is withheld, the more it is prized. And when it is finally offered, it lands with the weight of something rare, something costly, something that cannot be wasted. The blueprint of nature is written in a language older than civilization, older than culture, and older than the masks human beings wear to hide their motives. Beneath beauty, charm, or innocence lies a coded script, one that Schopenhauer devoted himself to exposing. He saw that nature does not concern itself with the illusions of individuals, but with the perpetuation of life itself. Every smile, every display of grace, every calculated gesture of innocence carries within it the hidden logic of nature's design. The individual believes they are acting freely, but behind their choices operates a will older than thought, a script that directs the dance of attraction, desire, and pursuit. Schopenhauer argued that human beings are not guided by lofty ideals, but by the blind will to live. This will expresses itself through instincts, through the craving for survival, reproduction, and continuation. What appears as charm is often strategy, though not consciously designed by the individual, but written into their very being by the demands of nature. Beauty, for instance, seems to be an aesthetic quality, but beneath it lies the code of selection. Certain features are favored not for art's sake, but because they signal health, vitality, or fertility. The admirer believes they are captivated by the surface, but they are in fact responding to nature's signals, carefully coded to ensure that the species persists. Even innocence carries within it this hidden script. What looks like purity may in fact be the projection of safety, a signal meant to disarm suspicion and invite trust. Such signals allow bonds to form, alliances to build, and opportunities for continuation to emerge. Charm works in the same way, softening resistance, bypassing rational suspicion, and paving the way for deeper influence. Each of these masks, beauty, charm, innocence, appears personal and unique, yet all follow the same underlying code that Schopenhauer revealed the will of nature using individuals as instruments for its own ends. The danger lies in mistaking the mask for the essence. To see beauty as truth is to fall for the illusion. To believe charm is sincerity is to confuse strategy with honesty. To equate innocence with purity is to forget that beneath every mask lies the same ancient directive. Schopenhauer insisted that wisdom comes from seeing past the disguise, from recognizing the repetition of patterns across time and culture. No matter how unique someone seems, their actions often trace the same pathways carved by nature's blueprint. This understanding also explains the endless cycles of human attraction and disappointment. The pursuit feels urgent and personal, but once attained, disillusion often follows. That is because the individual chased the mask without understanding the code beneath it. Beauty fades, charm shifts, innocence cracks, yet the underlying blueprint continues its work, moving the individual from one pursuit to the next. The will is never satisfied because its aim is not happiness but continuation, not fulfillment but persistence. What appears as personal longing is in fact nature's machinery at work, directing desire for purposes beyond the conscious mind. To study the blueprint of nature is to step outside illusion. It allows one to observe patterns without being ensnared by them. When someone enchants their beauty, the observer sees the coded signal beneath. When charm disarms, the observer recognizes the strategy written into instinct. When innocence attracts, the observer understands it as a projection, not an essence. This clarity does not strip life of meaning, but replaces fantasy with vision. It grants freedom, for the one who sees the script is no longer blindly played by it. Schopenhauer left this map so that human beings might navigate not by appearances, but by the hidden design beneath them, recognizing that the masks are many, but the blueprint is one.